What is going on, guys? This is obviously Jordan here, back again with another video on a tremendously windy and rainy day. I wonder if the microphone can even pick this up, but whatever. We do sound out here anyways. But yeah, obviously Jordan here with another video. And today I think I'm going to take a bit of a different approach of this video. And as you can tell from the title, I'm going to talk about my honest reflection on my almost 5 years studying here at the University of Bristol. Now, I've talked at length in the past about how I failed my first and second years at Bristol, my honest review of the University of Bristol, but I don't think I've ever actually sat down, not even with myself really, not even outside of YouTube, and sat down and actually reflected on my own experiences here, my own reflection on my actual time here. As I said, I've been here for 4 years. This is now my fifth year at the University of Bristol, and I think now is as good a time as ever to kind of touch on that and explore, I guess, the deeper my deeper perspectives on the matter. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into that. For you guys that don't know me, if you're like new to the channel, my name's Jordan. Obviously, I'm a second year engineering mathematics student at the University of Bristol, and yeah, while I just said I'm a second year, as I said just before that, I've actually been here for about 5 years now. I started in 2016. This is now the 2020 to 2021 academic year, and I'm still here learning online, getting due out here for some with my friends living in a flat, and yeah, like what do I think about that? I guess like like my honest thoughts. The thing is, like as I said earlier, like I've never even sat down to myself and thought about this, so there's gonna be a lot of random cuts I imagine in this video when I edit it later because I have no script, I have no planned segments for this. It's literally just off the ball, just unpacking, I guess, my experiences and yeah, like just I guess university as a whole in a broader sense. But yeah, man, like what do I think? What do I think? I've talked about it before in other videos how strange, like how it's kind of weird being the older one here, like still being here, seeing people that I knew in the past, like graduating and finishing uni. But if I were to say, like, if I were to pick one word to define, like, describe my experiences here, my reflection on Bristol so far, the 4 years I've been here, is it's been challenging, man. It's been very challenging, and I suppose what about it in particular has been challenging. Um, I guess I never really felt, I guess, like I landed here at uni. I never really felt like I arrived here, like like not I fat in, but it's like I never really settled into the Bristol life. And there are several reasons for that. I can't. I'd be here all day if I was trying to explain to describe individual reasons for it. But I guess like one thing, for example, would be like because I when I started uni, I was in a relationship, and a lot of people in their first year, especially like my maybe I mean not talk for everyone, but in my experience, a lot of the guys I hang out with, a lot of the girls I hang out with, what just went out clubbing every other night, tried to find people they can have fun with, enjoy nights with, and I was that one guy. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. I'm not one to. I'm not going to cheat on my partner, and I was with someone at the time, and I couldn't. I never really felt free to. Obviously, I couldn't do that in the first place. That's nothing that I was going to do in the first place. But that also meant that I kind of saw things differently. Like I never felt as free talking to other girls out there because I felt like I don't want to put on give off the wrong impression. I feel like a lot of people kind of act a certain way, and I didn't know how to freely be myself without uh, I don't know, making it difficult for myself, if that kind of makes sense. And because of that, that was a big influence in my first and second years, where it's like I never really knew what I was doing. I was kind of half friends with people, but half not. I was kind of keeping a bit of myself away to avoid falling into groups that just every night say, "Oh, let's come out." I'm like, I don't want to go outside. Like, I don't want to do that. And maybe that's a sentiment to me. Maybe I just found people and like settled too early with those people and kind of said, "Yeah, let's just hang out and be friends." I never actually explored different avenues early enough to find people that are actually more reflexive of my truer self. But even that's like a minuscule part. I mean, technically, it's a big thing. Like that defines your experience, people you hang out with, right? But that's technically it's a minuscule thing as to why. Like, obviously, I've been here for such a long time. You think that could have been adjusted and fixed over time, but as I said, there are several things. I'd be here all day if I went on to describe every single individual asset. If you do want to hear more about it, I guess like I do, I suppose talk about it in smaller segments throughout the course of my, the 20 episodes we have out so far of the Undergraduate Survival Guide podcast. If you want to listen to that, the links in the description below. That's the podcast fundamentally is me getting guests onto the show, other students, other graduates, talking to them about their experiences, what they learned, what they can teach others, how they're doing in life now, and trying to communicate that with the next generation so people can understand like what uni is really like, what people's actual experiences are. And obviously, when I'm interviewing guests, I also have my own 2 cents on it as well every now and then. So that's definitely one to check out if you do want more content like this to kind of understand more about the three dimensions of what university is. But nah, for me, as I said, like that's obviously one thing. Like the friendships you make are very, very important, and I didn't really put enough emphasis, enough energy into societies, into meeting people, and a huge part of that is because I say because I don't want to blame my partner, but obviously it's like I felt a certain way going into it, so I was always a bit more reserved. I was always a bit less of myself on a day to day because of that, and I guess kind of related but a bit separate is that influenced the way I even went about um, not necessarily going outside, but for lack of better words, going outside. It's like there are a lot of people on my phone and my Instagram that I talk to every now and then that I thought about it recently. It's like I've only actually met these people once, twice, if not 3 times max. I never really had these bonds where it's like every now and then you're going out, going out, going out, going out. And I think because of that, you miss out on a lot of these stories, a lot of the things that happen that people that group goes to talk about later. Like, oh, I remember, going to this place and that night. It's like I wasn't there. I wasn't there. So even though I know a lot of these people, it's not that I never really knew them, but it's like the quality of time is there, but the volume of time isn't there. So as I said, a lot of these experiences, a lot of these things, just I wasn't a part of, and a lot of these times, just like, as I said, I know you a bit more than I think I do because of social media, which I talked about a bit in Shay's episode of the podcast. But because of social media, so I've been seeing you recently. Like I know you were in Bali, whatever. I saw your story, but I never actually experienced that with them. I never actually knew these things. So I guess it's very short-minded of me to be like, yeah, like I know who you, I know where you've been, etc., etc. Because at the same time, fundamentally, I just haven't the volume of time just hasn't really been there. I think I guess like the fundamental thing when it comes to uni, like upon my reflection, if I could go back and do it again, the fundamental thing would be to. It's gonna sound so nuts, but not necessarily see it as a fresh start, but I guess come into it with an open mind. Come into it and be like, you know what? At least for the first 3 to 6 months, be like, you know what? I'm just gonna forget about the life you knew beforehand and completely immerse yourself in the university experience because otherwise it's like you have these preconceived notions of who you are and what you are based on the last 13, I guess technically speaking, yeah, 13 years of academic life beforehand. Even for me, like I changed schools when I was in year 4, year 5, whatever, and then I didn't really make too many friends at primary school. So secondary school, year 7 was effectively a brand new start for me. But even that, like the character that I defined in year 7, 8, 9 was kind of the person that I ended up being in year 13 as well, because people see you in a certain way, they treat you a certain way, you become like, Ebert, that's my last name. I was, oh, Ebert Jordan. Like I was this character, and the bounds that people made around that, like obviously people's opinion of you is formed by what you do to some degree, but fundamentally people can perceive things and interpret things in an infinite number of ways, and as I said, the bounds that they create for that character is kind of the bounds that you kind of stay in when you're at school. At least in my experience, I kind of stayed in that character. Like if someone said Jordan's a funny person, suddenly word goes around that you're funny. And now suddenly everything that you say is people are looking for the joke. If I say like, oh, I love Arsenal, they're a great team, and I'm saying this to someone who's a Man United fan, they're looking at me thinking like, is he being serious, or is this is the Jordan guy that's meant to be funny, right? Let me just laugh and be like, yeah. Like even if I'm saying them completely candidly and being like completely honest, people always kind of looked for that joke with me because I'm the funny guy. They're always looking for it to see if I'm like, where's the joke? What's the funny? What makes you so funny? And that made it difficult, I guess, to breach that box. I was always, as I said, I was always put in this box of being the funny guy. Well, obviously, I'm like kind of picking this one thing in particular, but there were bounds, was what I'm trying to say to my character that was defined how my academic life kind of went into school, and I assume that's similar for other people out there. And that's why I think going into uni is important to break that box and be like, you know what? Let me just immerse myself into this place first and understand that the bounds that existed before. Like people always say, one of the most challenging things for the smarter guys at uni is like you go from being like a big fish in a small pond, like you're very intelligent, you're the top of the pack. You go from the top of the pack to like the bottom of the pack, the middle of the pack, the small fish in a big pond analogy. You go from like the top dog to like an average dog in a massive park at university. And like, while that's true, and that can be daunting to some people, I think the best way to look at that is like you go from like a small pond or a small area to a massive one, and that yeah, like while that while that's talking specifically about the number of people in school as in university, I think that also applies to the bounds that it sets your character. First, you can only really go in a small circle, like you only have these few people, you only have these few rules. Now it's like literally no one knows you. You can literally do whatever you want, go anywhere you want, be whoever you want, meet whoever you want. The boundaries of your person, your identity, your character are like not limitless, but as far as you can perceive, they might as well be. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it's important to kind of have an open mind to not necessarily break the bonds of the past. Like I think one mistake people often make, one mistake I even made, is like breaking up with my girlfriend going into uni. Then after a week, I'm like, nah, this is stupid. Let's this is dumb. It's such a dumb thing to do. Like we were still happy, everything was still calm, so it didn't make any sense to do it. It didn't even like we didn't even count that. It was like a blip in our relationship. But it's like, or my ex, I should say. But now it's like it's a thing where you need well I should have if I can go back, as I said, this is to kind of to complete the reflection that I was going on, to complete that arc. If I could like go back and do it again, I'll just come into it with an open mind. I'll be like, you know what, yeah, I have these people here, these friendships here, this, Ebert exists, but let me put that behind me for now, at least into like, if you go out there, experience uni, you don't like it, and you kind of want to bring that back from the past, that's perfectly fine. Obviously, don't like burn those bridges. Just be like, look, I'm gonna do this for a bit and see how they go, see how it goes. But it's about exploring. Like it's another degree of exploration, I guess, and having an open mind, immersing yourself in that, finding yourself, finding your people, finding what works for you, what you like, and the quicker you do that, I think the better, because then once you have your group, your friends, you have your identity, you kind of know what you want to get out of uni, out of life. Not necessarily out of life, that's a bit of a reach, but at least what you want to get out of the next 3 to 4 years while you're at uni. Um, Whether that be to start a radio show and become a host, or get an internship and become uh, I'm gonna say like a banker, but you can get internships in anything really, like an engineer, HR, marketing, whatever. Like whatever your route is, you need to decide that. We don't need to, but at least have some sort of idea early on, and have the people at least that can help you get there. And if you don't have an idea, at least have people that have their own ideas, because you don't want to get into a group where no one knows anything and you kind of just stagnate. At least if you have one friend that's like, you know what, I don't necessarily know what I want to do, but I'm going to do an internship in this industry so I can find out whether I like it or not, and then go from there. And you can learn from that, and then, as I said, be open minded, immerse yourself in that, and then see where don't let your past decide or dictate your future, in the sense that you can literally do anything. Like it's the lower school game is finished. You completed that game. This is like life two. This is this is like part two. So take it have a fresh start in some way. Of course, without burning off all the bridges of the past. And yeah, that's fundamentally my reflection on uni. Like if I could go back, that's the one thing I told myself, is just to forget, not necessarily completely forget, but like at least slyly sever that, and see what's out there, and then come back later if you don't like it. But you have to at least dip your toes in. Otherwise, it's just a bit peak. I think another huge part of that, and I think this probably applies to way more people than I've ever given credit to. Like when you think about, once I start thinking about it, literally just now, I've been thinking about it. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still processing it. But it's like this is, I think, a lot of people, myself included, like. And to be fair, I know this is true for a lot of my friends in London from secondary school and sixth form and that, where it's like you're looking at the unis you can go to. You might be, let's say you want to apply for physics, and you're looking at where's the best, science uni in the country, and you see like Cambridge, Oxford, of course, are always the big ones for most subjects, and you see like Imperial College London, you see King, you see the London unis, and a lot of us are like, nah, no way, I don't want to study in London, because I just don't want to stay at home. I don't want to be living with my parents for the next however many years, studying, going to uni, going to work, whatever, while still living at home. Because a lot of us felt, again, I'm not speaking for everyone, it's mostly from my experience and from a few people that I know, but I'm going to keep saying I for the sake of this video, where it's like, I was like, I just didn't want to do it. I honestly just didn't want to do it. You could have told me that Imperial was like, if I went to Imperial College, London, and I smashed that degree, you could say like, you'd be in and out in 4 years guaranteed. You'd be earning 100K a year after that guaranteed, and I still wouldn't go. No, I still wouldn't have gone, because the idea, the thought of like going out leaving home, going to London, coming back home, for 4 years. It's ridiculous. Like I just it's just not something that I wanted to do. And as I said, I know a lot of people that had a similar mentality where they just wanted to get out. And while of course everyone has their own experiences, I think for me, what that meant is that I spent a lot of time in Bristol, um, not running away per se, but I never really land. I said I touched on it before. I never landed in Bristol, but it's like I was never really in Bristol. I was never really experiencing the life here in Bristol because in my head it was always like I'm just getting away from home. It's like I've always been away from home, but I've never been in Bristol. If that kind of makes sense. So that gap of being like I could have been in any other uni and felt exactly the same way. I feel like because the fundamental goal was just to not be living at home. Like any accommodation is fundamentally the same. You know, it's four walls, a bed, a desk, some other bits around the room. Like it's fundamentally the same. But the only difference between Bristol, Manchester, Birmingham, Nottingham, Leicester, etc., is the world outside of it, and that world outside is something that I never fully came to grips with, never fully experienced because, as I said, I'm always sitting here just like, okay, I'm away from them. I'll text mum every now and then, I'll text dad every now and then, but other than that, like I'm out, and that it was almost like a mental barrier, like a literal block where it's like I'm not here to be in Bristol. I'm here to be away from that. And I think that's a big thing, to be fair. And again, similar to like the friends group I made, I guess it's kind of a minuscule thing as well. But it's something that meant that as I said, I could never really land at Bristol. I was always kind of floating above it. I was always kind of slightly outside of it, and that played a part in you know just me not doing too well academically. I talked about it briefly in the YFL second year video. Go back and watch that if you haven't already. But I talked about how I have all these different pots, and even though like my academic pot has always been the least full, it's kind of like this bottle. Like there's a bit of water in here, but it's not. There's a bit of leeway, a bit of leverage. I think even though the academic side of uni has always been the easiest one, I have all these other bottles, like this, which is completely full. If you can see that, and it's like it's so hard to like the idea of the full bottle. I talked about in the video was kind of like my stress levels. Like I was always had minimal stress academically. It was always like if I had to do a project, I'd do it. If I had to work in a team, I'd do it. If I had to do a project, I'd do it. Whatever. It's like yeah, it was never full. I was never like at max peak stress levels. But when you combine all these other things going on outside, financial situation, family, social dynamics, etc., relationship, blah blah blah. Everything else is always like this is full, this max, and I was always my head was always focused, facing this way, trying to deal with how am I going to fix the house and pay for the bathroom, how am I going to fix my relationship and like go up to Liverpool, how am I going to fix my bank account and get a job and internship, this, that, and the other. And I was always looking at all these other things that, in truth, in reality, these things are way, way, way more important than university. Like people put so much weighting on your degree and on your well, yeah, just your degree basically, at the uni you go to. Fundamentally, it's not actually that big a deal. People will say, yeah, you need a degree to get a job, but like only what 30% of people in the country, like in my age group, actually go to uni. Like, what does that say about our 70% of people? Like, it's not. We've never had a generation of an unemployment rate of 70%. So that says a lot, like about how important uni and not even just uni, like the school system is as well. Like, if you're looking right now with the whole situation going on outside in 2020, um, the fact that schools, universities, colleges, everything was closed from like March until October, September, surely that says a lot about like I promise you in 10, 5, 20 years time, we're not going to have a generation of people that are just underskilled, that have no idea what they're doing. We're not going to have a generation of medical students that come out next year, the year after, just have no idea what they're doing and just like cut you open in random places. Like, everything's going to be fine. Obviously it's going to take a while to adjust. A lot of you know returning to the new normal has to happen, but fundamentally things aren't like just off of a ramp now because no one's been in school for a couple of months. Like if that doesn't tell you enough, like just understand that the university system and some, I mean, obviously that's a massive example, it's a vague example, but like people go on to do great things irrespective of whether they went to Bristol or Cambridge or Kent or I'm trying to think of other unis, but all I've got is all the obvious ones before the Manchester, Birmingham and stuff. But yeah, I'm waffling at the moment. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. Like again, I think I kind of went around the circles a little bit. I talked about different different things that happened to me, but my honest, like if I had to give you like one sentence to define like my university experience so far, yeah, of course before I said it was challenging, but I think the best way to describe it, the best, most holistic, I guess, interpretation of my experiences at university so far is, I guess, balanced. And I know that sounds nuts, but it's balanced because of the way, I guess, my mindset, the way I work and the way I operate, is that I always refuse to believe that the way things are not necessarily important, but it's like this. Let's talk about it in a broader sense. Talk about, for example, in politics in the greater world, irrespective of whether you vote Conservatives or Labour, Lib Dem, Green Party, whatever. That what happens politically, what happens economically is happening over there. Like, you don't really have an impact on that other than like voting or protesting, whatever you want to do. But like, that all happens irrespective of whether you vote or protest, regardless. Like, you can, yeah, all every vote matters, etc., etc. But once the ballot is done, no vote no vote matters after that, after the prime minister's in charge. And everything that they do irrespective of what you have to say. That's kind of like, I see it like a video game, like that. Whoever the leader is like Bowser. You're playing Mario Kart, you're playing Mario Brothers, whatever. Bowser's like the prime minister, and the rest of the world is set. All you can do is move backwards and forwards, up and down, and the political landscape, the what's going on outside in 2020. All these things you can't control. Anything that you have no direct control over, like, and I say specifically direct control, because you can argue, as I said, like voting, protesting, blah blah blah, but you can't actually go into 10 Downing Street or the White House or whatever and say, yeah, this is what we're going to do. You can't actually do that. All these things are out of our control. And for me, on the, bringing it back to the point at university, I can't control what coursework I get, what exams I get, what lecturers I get, who my tutor is, all these things, my classmates. I can't control any of that. The only thing I can control is like how much time I put into it, how much energy I put into other things, the notes I take, etc., etc. So those, now that I've got an understanding of that, I look at all the things that I can't control and say, okay, I put that over there. That's the game. That's the setting. Those are the controls, whatever. And then I look back. Those are the boundaries of limitation of like where things I can't do, can't control. And then everything over here, as I said, the notes I take, the friends I make, etc., etc. Even to be fair, the friends you make to some degree is controlled because you only meet the people that you're not necessarily allowed to meet, but your classmates, your society mates. You're only going to meet the people that are in the same spaces as you. But that's another story for another day. Um, the things that you can control, I feel like I've consistently reevaluated my support, not support system, my systems of control every time I failed a year. It was been 3 times. I've always been sitting down thinking about what can I change, what can I not change, and that consistent refinement has meant that I just think I'm a way more better, not necessarily a better person, but at least a more broader person now. Like, I do way more things. I understand way more things. I have a bigger sense of, not a bigger sense, I guess a more bolder sense of identity where I kind of know more about myself than I ever did before. And I'm looking at a lot of my friends who have graduated, who are struggling to get jobs, who are, still, I guess, finding themselves to some degree. They're still thinking about more adult things, I guess, for lack of a better word. But it's like, for example, me, I've got like a stocks and shares ISA. I talk about investing on this channel. I'm only 22 years old. I do investing. I've got a car. I talk about car. I've got videos planned, to be fair, for car stuff. I know how I'm going to move out in a couple of years when it comes to me moving out. I've got several mentors and several different industries. Like, I don't know. I've got a lot of things sorted out, and it's like all I've got to do now is get through each of these levels. But it's like the way I kind of see it, going back to the video game example, is like, let's say Mario Kart. Mario is a bit of a simple game. Talk about like The Last of Us, for example. You have a lot of these online walkthroughs, like, oh, don't go through this door, don't go through that door. If this person says this, say that, whatever. You have these specific walkthroughs, and I feel like each time I failed, as I said, I spent time reflecting, building up my knowledge pool, and by doing that, I've kind of completed steps of the walkthrough. Now, don't get me wrong. Obviously, things are never that simple. It's not like, oh, you have a mentor, yeah, you're perfect, and just get that job is fine. It just like, it's not that simple. But like, I'm not gonna say the walkthrough is complete, but I at least have a checkpoint here, a checkpoint here, and a bit of a tunnel, a checkpoint here, and a bit of a tunnel. And all I've got to do is, as I said, get to those points. And what will happen is, what I assume will happen, at least because of the position I put myself in, is that once I get into this tunnel, I'll just zoom through to the next stage, and then I'll do a bit more figuring out. Then I'll speak to that, the next mentor, get a bit more information. I'll step into that tunnel and zoom through again and keep zooming. Whereas a lot of my friends, when you come out of uni, which is like a big tunnel from like 0 to 21, 22, and then now it's just open space. It's just open space for the next 89, 79 years, whatever, however long you plan on living for. It's just open space, and you have no idea. which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's cool to have loads of options available to you, but it's like, as I said, people are unemployed, people are stressed, unhappy. I don't can't remember the specific term for it. It's like the graduation depression or some nonsense. Like no one's like actively depressed, but you can see there's this um, more introspective, I guess. They're doing a lot more thinking now, which I think I've been doing in the in the past. So I know, like as I said, I talked about it before. Internships, grad schemes, whatever. I'm gonna get that job, get that placement, whatever. Talk to my mentor. I'm starting this YouTube channel, podcast, all these different things that, as I said, once they start working, like the tunnel will just hopefully zoom me through into the next phase. And I don't know. Yeah, like that's why I think it's balanced, because I think even though the circumstances around me have been bad, irrespective, like I haven't even gone into depth about what's happened to me in terms of like what's actually happened, but I've had a lot of issues. You know, so many issues, so much, I guess, trauma, just to put a word towards all of it. And I think I've just been dealing with it, and that has adjusted my trajectory. And like as I said, even all that trauma has been outside of my control. Has been like setting the bounds of the game. So now it's like, okay, cool. Now I know what I've got to do. Now, if anything else happens like this, I know how to deal with it. And that has meant that I can, as I said, my trajectory has been refined, and I've got a lot of tunnels that can help me get through to the next phase. That's why I think it's balanced, because, as I said, the world is a bit peak, but it helped improve me as a player. It's helped me as a player of the game, so I think it should be cool. Um, I'm compelled to give one more game analogy because that's the type of person I am. But like, if you think about these RPG games like Assassin's Creed, it's not really an RPG. Like it's like a sub kind of RPG-ish game where it's like you can upgrade your character to go through the game. I think I'm that type of player right now where it's like I've completed the prologue. Now I've just like built up all that money, all that XP. I've upgraded my character to like level 100, and even though I'm still at the first level, it just means that now I'm gonna breeze through, get like one hit kills until the end of the game, where a lot of people kind of progress linearly as you're supposed to, and they've got to a point in the game where it's like, crap, I haven't upgraded my armor enough, so now I've got to go and do some side missions, get some points, and then come back to this level. Whereas me, it's like I'm done. I just got to breeze through, and of course I still got to play the game. But yeah, that's it. That's it. No more examples. No more examples. I've got my mood up a bit. And the reason behind making this video is that I've had a ridiculously long month of October. I've had housing issues. One of my friends decided not to come back to accommodation this year, so to find a new tenant. I had a car crash the other day, like a collision, I guess, make it sound less deep. Where some idiot pulled out in front of me. Um, Money issues. Having failed the year in the first place and having to think about student finance and whether I want to do the year again or not, or drop out. All these different things been going on all month. And I think today is Halloween, 31st of October. I thought, let me just put it all out and then start November anew and go into the festive period. It's a bit more, a bit more smiley. Obviously infringing on Arsenal beating Man United tomorrow. But I'm going off in circles. So that's all from me for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, for like the 100th time today, check out the podcast if that's something you want to find more, learn more about university. Hit me down below in the comments if you have any more other video ideas. I'm going to be talking a lot more at the moment about investing, about car stuff, university stuff, because I think that's just more applicable at the moment in the current time. But otherwise, yeah, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, comment down below, reach out to me, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc., and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. Whoa, it's going to be a lot of editing for me.